Hello everyone, I am Muhammad Anaskula Mustafa Wala from 3rd year cybersecurity at Sakik. For my SLA stage 2 presentation, I'll be talking about a technique called living off the land attacks in penetration testing. Uh, it's an attack, a method used by some of the most sophisticated hackers in the world where they compromise your entire system without ever bringing a single external tool. Let's get into it. What is living off the land? Let me start with an analogy because this concept is actually very intuitive once you see it. Imagine a burglar breaks into your house, but instead of carrying a weapon from outside, he picks up your kitchen knife, uses your own rope, and drives away in your own car. The crime was committed entirely using things that already belong to you. This is what exactly living off the land means in cybersecurity. The attacker goes into your system, and instead of downloading malware or hacking tools which would immediately trigger alerts, they just use software that is already installed on your machine. Tools that your own IT team uses every single day. Everything looks normal because it is normal software. Now let's talk about the actual weapons. They are called LOLBins, which stands for Living of the Land Binaries, which is mentioned as here. These are legitimate Microsoft signed tools that come with pre-installed on Windows. They are pre-installed on Windows. Every Windows system has it. Let me walk you through a few examples from this table. There's PowerShell. Every Windows admin uses it, but an attacker can use it to silently download payloads and execute them directly in memory without ever touching the hard drive. Next would be certutil.exe. This is a certificate management tool. Sounds harmless, right? Attackers use it to download files from the internet and even decode base64 encoded malware. That's WMIC. Windows Management Instrumentation. Legitimate use is managing system configurations remotely. Attacker use: execute commands on remote machines across a network. The critical point here is that antivirus software trusts these tools by default. So let's see how an LOTL attack unfolds. Step 1 is initial access. So the attacker first gets a foothold, maybe through a phishing email, a weak RDP password, or a vulnerability in a web application. That this is the only noisy part of the attack. Step 2 is execution, and this is where LOTL begins. Instead of dropping a malware file, the attacker fires a PowerShell command like this one, encoded in base64, running hidden in the background, entirely in memory. Nothing is written to the disk, nothing to scan. Step 3 is persistence. They use built-in tools like SCH tasks or the registry editor to make sure they survive a system reboot. Again, these are normal Windows tools. Step 4 is lateral movement. Using WMIC or PS execution, they quietly jump from one machine to another inside the network. Step 4 is lateral movement. No, let's go for step 5 actually. Step 5 is exfiltration. Tools like certutil or bits admin are used to slowly and quietly send stolen data out. Zero external tools, zero malware downloaded, and in many cases, zero alerts triggered. So why is this hard to stop? Let me break it down. Traditional antivirus works by machine matching files against a database of known malware signatures. But in a LOTL attack, there is no malware file, there is nothing to match against. Firewalls block connections to unknown or suspicious servers. But when PowerShell makes a connection, the firewall sees it as a trusted Windows process making a request, so it lets it through. And when you look at the logs, you see PowerShell running, you see certutil running, you see scheduled tasks being created, but all of that happen on any normal corporate network every single day. This is exactly why living off the land is preferred technique for advanced persistent threats, nation-state hackers, and ransomware operators. Groups like Lazarus, APT29, these are the people using lolbins because it works. Now let's bring this back to our context, penetration testing. When we simulate an LOTL attack during during a pen test, the goal is not to just compromise the system. The real goal is to find out, can the blue team still detect us when we use only the tools they trust. In a lab scenario on a Windows 10 machine, a pen tester might use PowerShell to run Mimikatz entirely in memory for credential dumping, then use certutil to stage a payload, create persistence with scheduled tasks, and move laterally using WMIC, all without ever downloading a single external file. And when we write the final report, the finding looks something like this. Attacker achieved full domain compromise using zero external tools, going undetected throughout the engagement. This is an extremely powerful finding. It directly tells the client that their signature based defenses are insufficient, which maps perfectly into CO3 and CO4 of our syllabus. Alright, still not convinced how serious this is? Let me give you a real world example that shook the entire cybersecurity industry. In 2020, a threat attacker known as Nobelium, linked to Russian intelligence, executed what is considered one of the most sophisticated cyber attacks in history. It was known as the solar wind supply chain attack. Here is what they did. They injected malicious code into legitimate software update from a company called SolarWinds. When organizations installed that update from a attackers were already inside, and then they used PowerShell scripts running in memory, WMIC for remote execution, and even legitimate cloud services as their command and control channel. 18,000 organizations were compromised. That includes the US Treasury, the Pentagon, and hundreds of Fortune 500 companies. And here is the most alarming part. They went completely undetected for 9 months. 9 months. Inside the US government's own networks using their own tools. That is the power of living off the land. So, what do we actually do when, LOTL findings are in a penetration testing report? Let's see what we can do. For technical controls, the most important step is to enable PowerShell script block logging, which records every command PowerShell executes, even encoded ones. Pair that with application control tools like AppLocker to restrict which users can even run PowerShell or certutil in the first place. For administrative controls, enforce the principle of least privilege. Most end users have no business running PowerShell. Restrict it to administrators only. Also, regularly audit scheduled tasks and set up entries for anything suspicious. And for operational controls, this is the big one. Shift from signature based detection to behavioral analysis. Train your SIEM to alert on anomalous patterns like a Word document spawning a PowerShell process. That parent child relationship is a massive red flag. The bottom line is this: if you cannot stop the tool, you have to monitor the behavior. Let me wrap up with the key points I want to take away from this. So, living off the land attacks using it uses your own system's trusted tools against you, making them invisible to traditional defenses. Lolbins like PowerShell, certutil, and WMIC are the most abused tools in real-world advanced attacks today. As a pen tester, mastering LOTL lets you simulate the kind of threats that actually matter to enterprise clients, and defense requires behavioral monitoring, not just antivirus. The best penetration testers don't just run tools, they think like the attacker, and understanding living off the land is exactly how you start doing that. Thank you.